As you can see, since my last video, I've started using the manifold blanket. I've switched to colder spark plugs. I went from BR7ES to BR8ES just to see how it does. We may end up switching back. I also removed the stock power steering pump because it was leaky, it was having issues, and there are better alternatives. That's something I'm working on right now. But I did recently put in these Torque Solution mounts, and they're doing pretty well. I haven't filmed much over the past couple of years to try and avoid jinxing myself, because that definitely happened quite a bit. Now I'm taking a new approach that I think will hopefully work better. So real quick, I'm gonna rewind to when I first got the car running on FuelTech. Quite a few people really helped with getting the thing up and running, but I do have to give credit especially to Steven Johnson, who's basically my sole tuner now, and he helped me street tune the car, and I was able to drive it like that for a bit and get things dialed in. After running a street tune for a little while, I decided to go to the dyno, but that did not go according to plan. Before the dyno, I swapped one of my coil packs. It was damaged, which I previously assumed was due to heat or being triggered incorrectly, but it turns out it was rubbing against the heat shield on my hood, which I only recently took off. I didn't realize how drastically it was affecting my spark, and the car behaved completely differently than it did on the street when we had it on the dyno. And that was just the beginning. Unfortunately, I forgot to upgrade my clutch when I was upgrading everything else, which is insane considering the entire thing was disassembled early on in the build process. It was pretty much a stock Clutch Masters kit in the car at the time I went to the dyno. The car was also running out of fuel. We would do a pull, and it would trip the alert we set on the FuelTech for the injector duty cycle. It has FIC 1650 injectors, which should have been enough for where we were, so I was really confused. But my tuner Steven redirected me to the Walbro 255 in the tank, and that wasn't able to keep up with the FP Red running E85. To top it off, we found it impossible to control boost, and I would soon come to realize the disadvantages of running an internally gated turbocharger. Even when zeroing out my wastegate duty cycle, we were overboosting. Hello boost creep. Following the dyno day, I was left with things to consider. Instead of reconfiguring my entire setup, I decided to just live with the boost creep and make sure that the fuel could keep up. I swapped out the Walbro 255 for a Walbro 525 Hellcat pump. Fuel would no longer be a problem. I knew I had to upgrade my clutch, but I still wanted to have a little fun. So we went to the drag strip. Anyway, at the track, I knew it wasn't safe to try and properly launch the car, so I couldn't get a decent start. Of course, by the time the car made power, it would slip all the way through the rev range.
Thank you. Seriously?
A few weeks later, I went back to the drag strip with my new ACT twin disc Cint iron clutch. I figured I'd go ahead and try and do a proper launch. The car lost cam sync. No bueno. I would soon realize it wasn't worth running the car in sequential injection mode while reading the crank signal from the 1G CAS, even with the 24-tooth trigger disc. The second time, I decided not to launch the car. The motor was bouncing around when I took off. The stock mounts weren't going to cut it for much longer. I was a little disappointed because I was hoping to get a solid trap speed as a baseline. I didn't get any real data from the dyno because we couldn't get a solid run in. So I still, to this day, don't know how much power this car makes. After the drag strip, I realized I just wanted to go back on the road course. So I called up a friend and I registered for SCCA time trials back in May. It was an event being held at NCM Motorsport Park. After the ECU popped out of the dash at the last drag strip event, I decided it was high time to make a backing plate for it. If I was going to be switching to road course racing, it was time to install the ECU sump. However, I decided to instead try a solution suggested by this guy on DSMTuners.
So this is my modified oil pan for my Eclipse. This is just to show a standard oil pan, which is non-baffled. This is tilted the same degree as that one. It will be a left-hand turn. So I had to think then for a second. You'll lose quite a lot of oil, and then at the time it will just go away from the pickup. And as you can see, it's already lost a bit, so just imagine that coming outside. Now this is my modified one, which roughly gains me about 1 extra quart. It's fully welded all the way around. There is a shroud in here which covers the pickup, so it keeps it as covered as possible. As I tilt this, any of the excess which is sitting on top, that will obviously move over, but the majority of it stays inside because it can't get past any holes here. So as you tilt it up further and further, it starts to come out, but the forces that this is going to take to come over this far is a lot. I doubt it will ever get that high.
I ordered a stock oil pan and had it sent to Colorado, and Steven did his best to mimic his design. My friend LJ, aka NoClutchGarage, drove over 400 miles to help me seal the oil pan and do whatever else we could do to prep the car to turn laps. When race day finally came, we finally got to shake down the Grey Ghost on a road course. I didn't film much because I was so nervous about just being there. During my first hot lap, the FuelTech shut off the motor a couple times due to a drop in oil pressure. Turns out I just needed to add an extra quart or two to the modified oil pan, and voila. I did also encounter some cam sync issues. And this is when I realized it was for the best to just run the system and waste its spark. Even though the 24-tooth trigger wheel that I've been running in the cast has been sufficient for quite a while, it does not do sequential injection perfectly. Unfortunately, the bushings fell out of one of the carrier bearings, so we didn't get to stay out as long as we'd like. But it did make me excited for what we could potentially do in the future. After that event, I purchased a side exit exhaust from CC Design Fab, and the quality was phenomenal. His work was immaculate. I also had a single piece drive shaft fabricated for my car, but that was a mistake. I ended up just spending weeks hunting for a stock drive shaft to put back on the car. I also got this GoPro to shoot from a POV perspective when I managed to get back to the track.
first session, I was booking it down the back straight, and I just completely lost control. It was super unfortunate, but I'm lucky I didn't lose the car. I'm very grateful nothing bad, really bad happened. But then I got black flagged, and I was thinking, well, what did I do to, I mean, of course I'd had a bit of an accident, but it looked like everyone was really pissed at me. I thought someone was gonna come out and yell at me, but when I finally parked and talked to an official, it turned out that my bumper had just become unfastened. I'd lost the fasteners. And so my wonderful wife ran with me to Advanced Auto Parts, and we got some stuff to re-secure it. Turns out the bolts we got were too big. But turns out I was able to just slightly modify my setup, and I got the bumper back on more secure than it was when we first went out there. That turned out fine. Go out for the second session, and that went better. It was smooth for the most part. damn it. Unfortunately, right after I passed pit lane, the car just died because I was running an alternative map in which I had not bumped up the engine coolant temperature cutoff. And so I was frantically looking for it, couldn't get the car to start back up again, and they sent someone out to tow my car, but it didn't take that long. I mean, the flags came out, the car cooled down enough, and I found the setting. I was able to limp the car off the track, and so I went to look at the logs and lick my wounds. And then an official comes riding up to me, and he's like, "Hey, you okay? Is it your first time out here?" I'm like, "No, been out here before in this car, I had no issues. I did time trials just a few months ago, didn't have any problems." He said that someone reported that my car spun in that second session, so they thought that I spun in the first and second sessions. I was like, "No, that didn't happen. I just have this safety feature that shuts off the motor to make sure I don't do any damage." And he was pretty cool about it. He just let me know that I was on their radar. They didn't want to see anything else, any other silly stuff going on. They were watching me, which fair, I guess, but I was still pretty shaken up from going off the first time. Well, I didn't really do anything wrong, and I asked if there was anything I could have done differently. I told him I just got out of the way best I could, and I figured when I got the car running, I could save everyone time by getting off the track myself. And it was just an unfortunate series of events, and I was pretty discouraged. I didn't want to go out the third time, considered just hanging it up, but my wife posed to me that I should try and get my money's worth out of it. Hadn't necessarily done anything wrong. Just try and enjoy it. The car is still running, besides a minor crack in the bumper. Not the bumper, the lip. So not even the bumper. The lip just took a bit of a hit. It's unfortunate, but it's trivial. Can't really complain about that. The car may be misfiring a bit, but I mean, it's purring smooth now. I'm able to drive it home. That's what I intended and hoped to be able to do. So, but I got back in the car before the beginning of the last session. I was going to just be like, you know what, let's just hang it up and go home. But I changed my mind. Something told me that I should get back out there. That some part of me may feel bitter about it if I didn't. So I made my way off the paddock, got back on the track, was in front of a couple of Corvettes, and I was like, crap, I'm gonna have to point by these guys as soon as I can. Mind you, I'm still shaken up from the first session, but I participated in the third session. Nothing happened, no incidents. It went fine. The car performed beautifully. I got good data. I wasn't able to record any of it, which I'm pretty frustrated about. Both of my mounts for the GoPro died. It's pretty upsetting, but I was able to get in a few laps before the car started to overheat again. I had lifted the ceiling before the engine shuts off, but it didn't push my luck. I went ahead, pulled off to pit road in one piece. I was able to go, turn off the car, and call it a day. I participated in every session of the day. Pretty happy about it. Car's still in one piece, it runs well, and I'm able to drive it home. So, honestly, thank God that it all worked out, and hopefully I have a good video out of all this. Anyway, thanks for watching.